Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Everybody's starting to shuffle in. Morning.
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 Okay, we're about halfway, so we'll wait a couple seconds to see if a few more people join. Then I got lots to tell you about because I went to the training for the final. So I want to tell you all about that. Here come a few more. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I'll just add people as they keep coming. So I went to the training for the responder lockdown monitoring, which is what has to be done for your final. So I need to make sure that everybody understands that you have to have a camera. Is there anybody who does not have a camera?
I have a camera. It's just it's not working currently.
Okay. Will it be working by the last week of the semester? Actually,
It should.
okay. So there's a quiz that makes sure that it works, that they've scheduled for the last week. So in that same week, you would have your PowerPoint, you'd have these quizzes to learn how to use Responder, and you'd be taking the final. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the quiz on how to use the software on next week. I'm going to move it and put it on next week so that you guys can all try the software with your camera. Again, is there anybody who does not have a camera?
Excuse me, Professor, I don't.
Okay.
So where should I pick one up?
Wait, Isaiah, you had one. I used to see you all the time.
Oh, should I just use that one?
Yes. You do
Okay.
not have to buy anything. The majority of you guys are on laptops. If you're on a laptop, it automatically has one. Everybody just try and turn on your cameras. Even if you look horrific, it's just me. Don't worry. Just try and turn them on. Ryan, you said yours isn't working. Isaiah, you're good.
Yeah, I didn't want to be rude
Valerie,
because I'm
good.
eating right
Nicholas,
now.
Hala, Taylor, you're all good. Let's see who else. Kevin, you're good. Arlene, fine. Kevin, good. Amy, you're good. Good. I just have to make sure you have cameras because you're going to be screwed if you don't. Jargi, good. Natalia, good. Jacqueline, good. Who hasn't shown me yet? Claudia, good. Roger and Evelyn, show me your cameras. Evelyn, you're good. Roger, you're good. Claudia, you did show me?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So everybody but Ryan who's on the phone, correct? I mean, who's on this Zoom. Okay, good. So that's the first step. Having a camera is super important. Now, the next thing is that you are going to, when you take this final exam, and you're going to do this all through the quiz because they're going to walk you through these steps. You're going to prove that you're you. This is a big deal. I was blown away by it. You are actually going to show your ID, whether it's a driver's license or your Middlesex County College ID, and the camera's going to match your face to your ID. Like, it is big time. Then you are, just so you know, I just want you guys to be perfectly clear. This is like a system. This isn't like me watching you take a test. This is a system that's watching you take a test. So you see how Evelyn just walked away from her computer? That's gonna, let's just say she was taking the exam and all of a sudden she had to go to the bathroom so bad. She walks away from her computer. We get this red flag that she does not appear on camera during the final, and it's red flagged as cheating. So go to the bathroom before you take this test. Do not have anybody walk in the room and look over your shoulder. That's going to be red flagged as cheating, because it's, you know, in your environment, they are going to red flag any chance that there could be cheating going on in your environment. So don't leave camera ever, and don't have anybody come in camera. Your computer is going to be locked down, so you are not going to be able to look up anything. And they did a ton during this training about the fact that they can identify if you're like, if I'm looking at my phone right now, you see how I'm like, let's just say I'm cheating and I'm looking at my phone. They can red flag that right away. Like, if you're not looking at the computer to answer the questions, they are red flagging you. So these, you'll learn this when you take the quiz, which I will give to you like next week as part of your getting in. Some of the things that they said is no two tests are alike. So every single person in this room is going to have a different test. It's all shuffled from the test banks. So they'll be like, I know for a fact it's 50 questions. I'm sure it's multiple choice. I'll know more when I try and take it. But again, my test will be different than your test. So 50 questions worth 100 points, but only 10% of your grade. Only. So that's pretty good. That is not bad, 10%. So if you're a terrible test taker, then it's way better to do super on the project, the papers and the PowerPoint and stuff, because that cumulative is worth 35% of your grade versus only 10% being this final. So questions about the final that I can answer. I may or may not be able to answer.
Do you know how good necessarily like that Face ID thing is?
That what is?
Like, you know how you said we have to get like our ID for the Face ID? Like, is the system like good? Because I know my like ID, I don't have glasses, so I have to take off my glasses so like scans it.
I think in the exam, in the test sample test that you do, like about how to use it, it's going to do that for you. So you'll know before you take the final. So you can say to me, I did the sample quiz, and because I wasn't wearing my glasses, it didn't recognize me so great.
Okay.
The whole point of it is to make sure that you are taking the test and not your brother, who is a clinical psychologist.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really the point of doing it, is to make sure it's you. But I am telling you, and you'll see it. You'll probably do the same training that I did, and you will see that they show you if somebody comes in screen, and like in the one that I was looking at, you know, a woman was taking the test and it looks like her husband came in and like came over her shoulder and was like reading the test, and they were like, danger, Will Robinson, this is a red flag, you can't do that. So that's like a total red flag for cheating.
All right.
So just, again, I'm opening it next week at week 13. It'll be part of your week instead of waiting till week 15. I want you to get used to it, decrease your stress about it. It's only 10%. That's the moral of the story. And you're recognizing information that you've already learned. Everything is from these chapters. All these questions are from chapters. You've been taking test after test after test on your study plans and what do you know and all that stuff. It's the same exact test bank. So there's a really good chance you're going to see questions that you've already seen on there. So that's good news because you'll feel confident in that. So excellent questions. Take the test next week and then we'll address it again. So it'll be week 13. It'll be week 13 that you're taking the test. And then in week 14, when we come back, we can discuss any problems or any issues that you see with it. But again, they've been telling us to tell you, it's been on your modules that you have to have a camera. So Ryan, if you cannot get that camera up and running, you got to buy a little cheapy one. I bought a little cheapy one because I'm on a desktop right now. So it was, you know, under $20 for a little, I just plug it in. It does sound, it does everything. So you guys definitely have to get that. Okay.
Oh, well, my camera works. You've seen my camera on from time to time again. It's just that for today, it's just not working because I was fiddling around with the system.
Okay. Okay. Well, I hope you get that back up. Okay. So we're moving on. Social psychology, which was week 11, to me is one of the more boring weeks. I would rather do memory. I would rather do, a few of the other sleep cycles, things like that. But for some reason, they chose social psychology for week number 11. Week number 12 is personality. Now, personality is very contingent on people's theories. So this is very laden with different personas and what they quote unquote like invented or discovered. So I want to do, does everybody have their cell phone available? Because I want to do a Kahoot to see how well you know your personality before we do this. So everybody get cell phones. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to play Kahoot. Does everybody know how to play Kahoot?
God, it's been forever since I've played something like Kahoot.
Okay, so we'll learn together. I just have to get
Do
this
we have
out
to
of
get
my
the
way.
app on the phone?
Say again?
Do we have to get the app on the phone?
Yeah.
No, you
Yep.
can just search it up online. If you search up Play Kahoot on like Google, you could play it on like on the phone, like, you know, online.
Okay, so we're gonna play classic. You can go to www.kahootit or you can play with the app.
Professor, I don't know how to do that.
Okay, so either go to www.kahootit, KAHOOT.IT. Oh wait, I meant to say, put in fun names. We'll figure who you out, but put in, like I always have like Kanye play and Beyonce plays sometimes. So
Professor, should we do this from our
come
phone?
up with a fun name. So when you put in www.kahootit.com, then you put in the PIN number. 657-7737. Captain Derp. We got a turkey for Thanksgiving. Woo! I'm wearing my turkey earrings. Harpreet, that is not a fun name.
Professor, I have to put this number 6577
Yeah, yeah.
after.
It's
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday. Oh, Dwight from the office is here.
I'm slow with this. Hold on.
James Maynard is here. Somebody's tired. So am I. Raj. Oh, shrimps.
Gotta get the app, man.
Yeah, the app is
Right,
this
Thanksgiving,
www
Oh, kitty cats.
is
We got a heart.
www.kahoot.it.
Kev. I will tell you how to play once we're all somewhat in.
Oh, I didn't know we could put emojis.
Yeah, I didn't know either, but obviously we can.
Can I go back and change my name or no?
Yes, you may.
How do
Peter
we do
Pan
that?
has joined us.
Yo quiero-
Already.
No, no.
Built different.
Huh? Ponle un emoji.
There's 23 of you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, turkeys. I like it.
Huh? El número es
You'll be
6577
fair.
37.
We're still missing a lot of people. Where is everybody? There's 23 of you.
I'm in process.
I feel like I'm in high school again.
It's a learning tool, Amanda.
Brings back memories.
Yeah, it brings back all the memories of like in high school and all of that. It's funny.
Y'all played this in high school? I've never seen this before in my life.
Really?
Never.
Tinkerbell,
Maybe it's because I'm old, but
you're not old.
I feel old.
Wait, we lost Peter Pan and we got Tinkerbell? I'm confused.
Nickname.
Nickname?
Evan.
No.
Cobra.
Ruby.
Everybody's like up in their game. Raj is now Raj with an okay sign. Evelyn is in the building. Evelyn, you're good. Oh, mommy. Hey, babe, you're changing your names. I'm not getting new people. I'm getting people changing their names.
No, mira lo que tú pusiste.
5, 6, 7.
There's 18 people and then there's 22 of us in here.
Right. We're missing. There were 23 or 24 of us.
Dije que pusieran nombres diferentes.
Last place. Funny. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's not good. All right, we're up to 20. Who's not in? Tell me that you're not in. Now we went down. How is this happening that we're going the wrong direction? How are we losing people? I don't understand.
I think they changed their names.
Who is not in? Say out loud who's not in right now. Obviously, I'm speaking German. Say who, if you're not in right now. Unmute yourself and say, I'm not in. All right. Obviously, I'm speaking another language. Okay. So now we're going the other direction. Now we're losing people. Okay. So what's going to happen is when I press start, a question about personality is going to come up. There's going to be 4 answers, and each answer correlates to a shape. You look at the screen and then answer with the shape, the color and the shape. And you get points for answering correctly and the quickest. Okay, so once I hit start, 18 of you or 20 of you or 17 or 19, we're playing. So here we go. Your first question on personality. Alerting is farting, screaming out, self-disclosure, or a mental process. Hit the answer.
Wow.
11 of you got it right. Thank you, nobody, for answering farting. I appreciate that. Cobra is in the lead with Dwight quickly behind him. Next question. This system of personality works on the reality principle. Is it ego, consciousness, superego, or id?
I can't realize what is going on.
Six of you got it. Ego is the correct answer. Wow. Let's see. Cobra's still in the lead with Tired and Captain Derp. All right. Here we go. How many words in the English language did Allport say described people? Was it 2,000, 6,000, 8,500, or 4,500?
This is guessing. Everything's, I don't know.
4,500. 3 of you got that right. Let's see where we stand. Cobra is still winning, but Tinkerbell is on Cobra's heels. All right, next question. Michelle studied self-regulation by using a blank test. Marshmallow, cookie, chocolate, or soda?
I think like, como yo sé si estoy, I can't, what is going on? It doesn't press. Okay,
That is the marshmallow chat. Oh, something's wrong with the internet. I don't know who it is though. Okay, Marshmallow, 5 of you got it right. Let's say Cobra's still winning, but look at everybody. Tinkerbell and James Maynard and Alexandra and Mommy. All right. Let's see. Maslow created a hierarchy of wants, needs, regards, or traits.
Oh, ¿qué? Ah, con razón que yo no estoy haciendo, ¿no es cierto? No, porque yo entré acá, no ahí.
Look at you, 11 of you got needs. Very nice. Let's see. Cobra with Tinkerbell and Captain Derp right behind. Let's go. Studies show identical twins have similar personalities when they are raised together, apart, both together and apart, no similarities in personalities.
No similarity. Oh my God.
Both together and apart. Identical twins have the same personalities, whether raised together or apart. 6 of you.
What?
Let's see. We have a new one. And Kev is the highest climber, but Captain Dirk took the lead.
Look, the gobbles are up.
Yes, this is true. They're up there. The turkeys are coming. All right. Next question. The CTCB personality inventory is geared towards Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, or Arab Americans.
What is
5 of you, African Americans. We'll learn all about that. All right, it's a personality podium. James Maynard got 3 out of 7. Captain Derp, and the winner is Tinkerbell. Woo! All right, runners up, Cobra and Turkeys. Not bad. Who was Tinkerbell?
With me,
Who's me?
Doggy.
All righty. Let's see. Hold on. Coming back. Shaggy was the winner. There are prizes. There's always prizes. So you won the game. We're going to play a game after again. We're going to go back to, we'll stop sharing now. Oh, let me hit next. Stop share. Next. Okay.
Look at it.
All right.
Oh,
Okay. So,
esta
oops,
clase se
I
termina
have to turn
rápido.
this off right now.
Porque no puedo.
Hold on one
Que
second.
tengo que grabar la clase. Y ella dijo que tiene que.
All right, let's make it silent. Okay. All right. So let's learn about personality, and then you guys will. Okay, Harpreet, you were having problems with internet. Are you with us or no? I see you. Okay. All right, personality. That's what this chapter is about. You took a test on some forms of personality. Who is the guy that is most known for talking about who we are based on our unconscious thought?
Freud.
Freud, exactly. Sigmund Freud. The proper way of spelling Freud is F-R-E-U-D. Freud. Freud taught us all about personality from his point of view. Now, going back to, remember we learned how psychology started? Remember I told you there was some type of personality where they felt, I mean, not personality, some type of psychological research where they felt bumps on the head. Who remembers what that was called?
Phrenology.
Phrenology, exactly. So actually when they started studying personality, they actually were studying phrenology. They were literally studying the bumps on your head and saying parts of your personality. Well, as you know, that is not accurate, but it was the first time that personality was being studied. Then Freud came along and his theory of psychoanalysis, and he was the first one to really talk about the word personality. So we have to define personality for you guys to learn personality. Personality is a person's characteristic patterns of behavior, thinking, and feeling. A person's characteristic patterns of behavior, thinking, and feeling. So Freud came up with the theory on the iceberg. So again, I'm going to share my screen and show you the iceberg. You guys might have seen this before. It's taking a long time. It doesn't seem to be there. Oh, here we go. Good. All right, it's just taking a long time. Okay, so this is Freud's iceberg. And basically, it's called an iceberg because if you were in a boat, i.e. the Titanic or a big boat like that, and you see an iceberg, which is what you see above the water, what is below the water is way bigger than what you see above the water. So according to Freud, when we talk about personality, things that you consciously see about people is just a very small part of what makes up a person's personality, which is underneath the water. So you have your conscious and you have your unconscious, right? But these are the three systems of personality. You have what's known as the id. It is not the ID. It is the id. The id happens at birth, and it contains the pleasure principle. So basically, all of your instincts and urges and hunger and thirst and aggressiveness, you are seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That's the id. So did everybody get that? Basically, it's natural and unconscious. Look, it is completely unconscious on that picture. So it is natural and unconscious, and it is all about the pleasure principle. It's about seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. The ego, which is partially conscious and partially unconscious, has to do with the reality principle. The reality principle means that it satisfies the id's urges, but it is logical and realistic. It is rational. That's the ego. And the superego is your moral component. Your superego is like the judge and the jury to your personality. Everybody got that before I turn this off?
No, wait. Super ego, please.
Ego is the reality principle. It's your logical, rational, and realistic part. And as you can see, it is partially conscious and partially unconscious. Okay, so Freud believed that the unconscious was basically what motivated all of our personality. That was the Freudian thing, was that everything had to do with your unconscious. So when you might say something and you accidentally use the wrong word, you've heard the term a Freudian slip. That's what Freud would say your unconscious really meant for you to say, but you weren't thinking about it, but your unconscious made you say it. The example that they use in your book is that if you're at a soccer game and you're saying hello to the other team, you might extend your hand and say, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." And that's your unconscious. That's a Freudian slip that your unconscious was thinking about beating, and you said it instead of meeting. So that's a Freudian slip. Freud talks about defense mechanisms. Your book goes into a lot about defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are used by the ego to defend against anxiety and maintain self-esteem. And you'll see a whole host of them, like repression, suppression, reaction formation. You'll see all of that. I'm just doing a quick overview about what's in the chapter for you. But you will learn all about different defense mechanisms. And you'll also learn about Freud's psychosexual stages, which are stages that happen. Now, of course, everything is sexual with Freud. You have to know that. Freud, his main component was sexual urges and desires. So he came up with these different stages as you're a child that have to do with psychosexual stages. So when you're born, you're in what's known as the oral stage, and that lasts for the first year of life, and that has everything to do with your mouth. Now think about babies. Babies put everything in their mouth. So he concluded that that's considered an oral stage. Now, if you get fixated at a stage, let's say something traumatic happens in their first year of life, then you might have what's known as an oral fixation. And somebody who's an oral fixation might be somebody who chews on pens all the time, or has to chew gum all the time, or keeps something very, in their mouth at all times. Maybe that's somebody who overeats big time. The next stage, which is 1 to 3 years of stage, is the anal stage, because what's the main thing that's happening between 1 and 3 years? Your toilet training. So it's the anal stage. According to Freud, if you have something traumatic happen between 1 to 3 years of age, you can have this anal fixation. Now, you've heard people say, oh my God, he's so anal. I can't believe he's freaking out about the smallest thing. Somebody who's considered anal or anally fixed is somebody who's like so neat and meticulous and freaks out if things aren't absolutely perfect. That's an anal fixation. Between 3 and 6 is considered the phallic stage. That's a genital stage. Then everything calms down from around the ages of 5 or 6 till puberty. And that's considered latency, which means laying low, latency. So nothing really happens in those ages. And then at puberty, it's a maturation. So it's considered the genital stage after that. So some of these fixations have to do with your personality for the rest of your life. That's why we talk about stages. And again, this is a chapter on personality. Now, Freud also coined 2 terms, the Oedipus complex and the Electra complex. Has anybody heard of the Oedipus complex?
I have.
Can you tell me what it is?
It's basically when you're self-centered, you focus on yourself too much. It's also something from Greek mythology as well.
It is Greek. It started in Greek mythology. Freud took it to the sexual side. So you have the Oedipus and the Electra complex. And Freud, because he puts everything into sexual context, said that the Oedipus complex is when a little girl, bye Amanda. When a little boy has this extreme love for their mother and a competition for their father. Now, of course, Freud made it very sexual, but really, it was about a competition, like a love, an attention situation. So taking the sexual side out of it, The Oedipus complex would be that a little boy has extreme love for their mother and competition for their mother's love with their father. And the Electra complex is a little girl and their dad. So a little girl who would have this love for their father and a competition with their mother for the love of the father. Now, Freud took it sexually, but really these complexes are defined because a child is having a love for their parent and a competition with the other one. So it's a thing. So Freud has been discounted based on a lot of his sexual stuff, but he was, again, the first one that called attention to these things like the unconscious and childhood memories and defense mechanisms. So he's criticized because you can't really test his theories, but he did start the theories. So then there were a group of people that came about because they started following along with Freud and then they changed their tune. And those are called neo-Freudians. Neo-Freudians are people that studied under Freud and then changed their belief system. So they started with his theories, but then built on their own. So some of them we'll talk about are Carl Jung, Alfred Adler, and Karen Horney. So let's start with Carl Jung. Let me just write all their names down so that you have them. Can't open my pen. Okay, so we'll start with Jung. He's the first neo-Freudian. And he was the first one to say, you know, sexual instinct is not the main factor of personality. So he said everybody still has an ego. That part he agreed with Freud, but he used the terms personal unconscious and collective unconscious. So Carl Jung says, yes, you have an ego, and that is conscious, just like Freud said. And then you have a personal unconscious, which is the result of experience, that every single person has their own personal unconscious. Your birthday parties, your upbringing, your culture, all of that stuff is your own personal unconscious. And then there's a collective unconscious that is universal to all of us. And part of that collective unconscious are the archetypes. Part of that collective unconscious are archetypes, which are responses to universal situations. So for instance, frontline workers right now, the archetype or the collective unconscious of frontline workers are that they are heroes. They are working in a pandemic on the front line, helping people get better. That's a collective unconscious. That's not necessarily personal to you. It's something that we all believe in, and that's their personality. You could say that if there was like a mass murderer, let's just say, you would say that he's a horrible person. Now that is a collective unconscious, not a personal unconscious, though personally you think it's horrible that this guy has killed so many people. You know that that's the feeling across the board. It's universal. Eric Erickson is a guy who remembers. We learned about him when we learned about Piaget. What did we learn about Eric Erickson? Who remembers what Erickson taught us? He gave us 8s of something. What did he give us 8? Come on, somebody remembers.
Condition.
Psychosocial development.
Yeah, it was the psychosocial dilemmas that we talked about. We talked about in the first year of life, is it a secure or an insecure environment? When you become a teenager, who am I? It's that question, intimacy versus isolation. Remember being stagnant or helping the next generation. So these are all part of personality. So Eric Erickson's 8 theories have to do with the personality that you are. One of the other things that Carl Jung figured out and other people refined is that people's personality are either extroverted or introverted. So as you know, extroverted is somebody who's outgoing and introverted is somebody who works on their inner activity. So he started with these words extroversion and introversion, but other people expanded on it, and we'll learn about that. The next guy that is a neo-Freudian is Alfred Adler. He was way more interested in individual psychology. And he coined the term inferiority complex. Who knows what an inferiority complex is?
Is it when you look down upon your own self?
Yes, exactly. It is when you have a feeling of inadequacy that hinders you in some way. Now, if it didn't hinder you, it wouldn't be a complex, but it's actually stifling you in some way when you don't feel adequate enough. And then because of that, you're not able to attain your best self. Okay, so the next person, the next neo-Freudian is Karen Horney. Believe it or not, that's her name, especially when you're talking about all this repressed sexual stuff. Her name was Karen Horney. Karen Horney was the person who rejected most of Freud's work because he felt that women were completely subservient and never took into effect that women have the same conscious and unconscious thought as men. So Karen Horney, who was considered a feminist, especially at that time, was the first one to say, hello, women's psychological makeup is different than men's psychological makeup. And, you know, women needed to overcome whatever was put out by society. So she looked at cultural and environmental influences to your personality instead of the unconscious stuff. She still did unconscious stuff, but at that time when she was coming about, women were repressed. So she needed to come up with stuff. One of the things that Freud had said was that women have penis envy, that we wish we were men and stuff like that. She was like, no, that was a hard no. So the next theorist that came about was not neo-Freudians. So neo-Freudians did their work, and then another group of psychologists or psychotherapists or researchers came out that learning about personality has to be observable. Okay. So instead of trying to figure out what is going in somebody's mind, we're going to talk about their personality by what we can see about them. That's what observable behavior is. So Bandura was the first one to study observable behavior to do with personality. And he used observational learning. And using observational learning, so Bandura's famous for a specific experiment called the Bobo doll. Does anybody know what the Bobo doll experiment was? Nobody's heard of the Bobo doll experiment because that's what he's famous for.
I've heard of it. Just I'm mixing up different experiments right now of what it could be.
Okay, so basically, based on observational learning, they had one of those like inflatable things that when you push it, it comes back up. And so they put a bunch of children in a room and an adult came in and punched this Bobo doll like 4 times and then walked out the room. What do you think the kids did?
They copy them.
Yeah, they started hitting the doll.
They started beating up that doll. And that was, if you really think about it, it was really the first time that anybody proved that violence can be learned. So we're talking about learning, we're talking about personality. So Bandura says is that personality develops through observation. If you see happy people, then you might decide to be happy. If you're only surrounded by negative people, then your personality is going to be influenced by that. So observational learning was pretty important. And so there's a term that self-efficacy is the term that he coined. Here, let me write it for you.
Bless you.
Yeah. Self-efficacy is how you, each person, has the ability to perform competently. So it's how you perceive yourself and how you can perform. That's your self-efficacy. Now, people who are high in self-efficacy approach situations confidently. They set high goals and they are persistent in their efforts because they feel they can achieve. People who are low in self-efficacy accept failure, they avoid challenges, and they give up on tasks. So in other words, high equals effort and low equals somebody who would expect failure. So I ask you this question. Would self-efficacy play a role in your personality? What do you think? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, big time. Absolutely. Definitely. Jargi, are you raising your hand?
No.
Huh, there's a little hand on you. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our next person who studied personality, and his name was Rotter. Julian Rotter. Julian Rotter is the person who talks about the locus of control. Locus of control. So there's 2 types of locuses of control. You have an internal locus of control and you have the external locus of control. If you read the horoscopes every day and that tells you what to expect for the day, do you have an internal or an external locus of control?
Is that internal?
So the opposite of that would be external. So external means that something else might change your day. So reading your horoscope would mean that you're not completely in control of what's going to happen today. If you're an internal control, then you get that you are in charge of how things happen. Now we're talking about personality. So somebody who has an internal locus of control feels that they can control their personality. Somebody who has an external locus of control does not believe that they have any bearing on their personality. It's predetermined to them and they can't change it. But as we know in psychology, everything is changeable. So the last guy in this situation on observational psychology is a guy named Walter Mischel. Who studied under Rotter. Walter Mischel looked at self-regulation, which is another word for willpower, self-regulation. So he did what was the marshmallow test. And the marshmallow test was when he had young, elementary school students. And he did this experiment where they could sit in a room with a marshmallow in front of them. And they were told they could eat the marshmallow right now, or they could wait a couple minutes until Mischel or any of his, colleagues came back in, and they could have 2 marshmallows if they waited. Now, what do you think the majority of kids did?
They ate the first marshmallow?
Yes, they ate the first marshmallow. But of the children that decided to wait and get 2 marshmallows, they studied these children for years and years and years. And so the children that waited and had self-regulation and had willpower, those grew up to be adults that did better in school, that had great marriages, they were smart, they could control themselves. The kids that just gobbled up the marshmallow and had no self-regulation and willpower were kids that were impulsive, that actually didn't do well in school and ended up with substance abuse problems. So they studied this tiny little thing called regulation and willpower that transposed to their personalities and their lives later, which is pretty interesting based on the marshmallow test. So, and I can't, I'll be honest with you. I think it would be hard as a little kid sitting there with a marshmallow and being told, this choice to either eat this marshmallow or wait and get 2. That's a tough one. Think about what you might do. I think it would be very common for a bunch of us to want to eat that marshmallow, right? As a little kid, self-regulation and willpower. So we're now moving on to the new theorists that were known as the humanistic theories on personality. Humanistic psychology. And the humanistic personality theories basically say people are assumed to have a natural tendency towards growth and realization of their full potential. So in other words, you recognize that you have this potential and you go for it. That's what humanistic psychology says about personality. So I'm going to show you the first guy. He was named Maslow, and Maslow had, I'm sharing my screen. Maslow gave us let me get rid of that and go to Maslow. Okay. this says, it's hard to see on the bottom, but it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So in order to be the best you can be, which is self-actualization, you have to have each of these needs met. So on the barest level of your needs, you have physiological needs. You need air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction to survive. That is the lowest level of needs. Once you are satisfied in physiological needs, then you can move up to your safety needs, which are personal security, employment, resources, health, property. Once you are secure in safety, you can go on to love and belonging, which is friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Once you've met that need, you can go on to esteem, respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. And to be the best person that you can be, once you have met your esteem needs, you become self-actualized, which is becoming or being your fullest potential, the best you can be. So you can't go up a level unless you've met all these other levels, and hopefully, and not everybody in the world becomes self-actualized. That is a special person. And there's actually another level. They've actually updated his hierarchy of needs to include one more level about self-actualization, which has to do with being able to give to others. So, but for now, this is what Maslow has determined to be self-actualized. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, the next theorist, I told you there's so many theorists. This is such a tough chapter with all these theorists. The next one is Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers is all about our own conditions of worth, which is another name for self-concept. Self-concept. What's your self-concept? What's your self-concept?
What do you feel you are? What you think about you?
Exactly, how we feel about ourselves. So, are you talking about your ideal self or your real self? Your ideal self is what you would like to be. That's your ideal self, or your real self, which is what you actually are. So everybody has an ideal self and everybody has a real self. And whether it's about your body type, oh, I wish I was skinnier, or I wish I was more athletic, or it could do with your personality. I wish I was more outgoing. Oh, I should probably shut my mouth sometimes. I get myself into trouble. That's the difference between your ideal self and your real self. So the next approach to personality has to do with your biological approach. So we're talking about nature versus nurture. Yet again, we are always going to talk about nature versus nurture. Nature is your what? What's nature?
Genetics.
Genetics. And nurture is your what?
Environment.
Right. So we're always going to talk about the balance of those two things. So when we talk about personality, they actually studied twins. And they studied identical twins, and they studied identical twins' personality that were raised together, and they studied identical twins that were raised apart. And so no matter how they were raised together or apart, they are genetically the same, identical twins, one egg that splits. So their personalities are exactly the same, whether raised together or apart. So they studied this using the Minnesota twin study. The Minnesota twin study showed that identical twins have similar personality traits and IQ scores, even if they are raised in two completely different environments. So that is which, nature or nurture? Is that nature or nurture? Hello? Minnesota twin study showed that twins are exactly the same personality and IQ, whether they're raised in together or apart. What is that, nature or
It's
nurture?
nature.
Nature.
It's nature. Nature. Genetically, they're predisposed to being exactly the same. So we're talking about personalities. We know that personality, the nurture end of it, that personalities can be influenced by our parents and by cultures. We know their culture is, beliefs and customs of a society, right? So we talk about temperament, right? We talked about temperament when we talked about development, human development. We talked about kids that are born easy, difficult, slow to warm up. And we know that environment can change that. So it has to do with nurture in that respect. When we talk about nature and nurture and personality, culture plays a big role. In the United States, are we a collectivist or an individualistic society?
Individualistic.
Yes, correct. And what does an individualistic culture or society mean? Because we 100% are individualistic in the United States. What does it mean? What does individualistic society mean?
It's like a society where everyone's like to themselves and for themselves.
Exactly. You care about individual achievement. It's not group. But a collectivist society like Asia and certain Latin American countries, they put on group achievement. They're very family oriented. Elders are the head of families, and as you get older, you become more heralded. So in the United States, we're 100% about ourselves. So they look at that when they look at nature versus nurture. So the next part of your chapter, oh no, we have one more guy. We have one more theory, and that's the trait theorists. Before we go on to how they study psychology, we have to look at one more group of people that are trait theorists. There are 4,500 words in the English language that describe people. So those are traits, 4,500 words. So Gordon Allport was the guy who discovered it. Gordon Allport, who said that every person has unique traits. And he broke them down to 3 types of traits. You have cardinal traits, central traits, and secondary. You have cardinal traits, central traits, and secondary traits. Your cardinal trait is a personality quality that is so strong in an individual's personality that he or she becomes identified with that trait. So if you have somebody that is just mean and nasty all the time, that is their cardinal trait. They are going to be identified as a mean and nasty person. A central trait is a type of trait that you might mention in a letter of recommendation. So a central trait might be somebody who's trustworthy or ambitious or a hard worker. That might be a central trait. And a secondary trait is a trait that is not obvious. It might come out when it's needed, but it's not part of the personality. So somebody can be the most easygoing person, but somebody threatens their child, let's just say. You could be the nicest, easygoing person, and you find out that somebody did something terrible to your child. You all of a sudden become a mama bear. That's a secondary trait because nobody would see that coming for you. So Gordon Allport has these 4,500 words. And so another trait theorist, we are writing so much today. Another trait theorist whose name was Raymond Cattell. I just want to make sure I spell it right for you. Raymond Cattell broke it down to 171 words and made it much easier. And he said you have either surface traits or source traits. Surface traits are observable and source are underlying. Surface are observable and source are underlying. And then along came Hans Eysenck. And he is actually the one that we use his theories the most today. He started the most widely used theory today. He started with extroversion and neuroticism. And then, I'm not going to give you their names, but the 5-factor theory is actually utilized today. It's McCrae and Costa, but really the thing you need to know is about the 5-factor theory. And the 5-factor theory, to make it easy, spells ocean. Now, this is something you do need to know because it will come up again and again. Ocean, openness to experience. The O is openness to experience. C is conscientiousness. E, extroversion. A, agreeableness. N, neuroticism. So these 5 factors are plotted on how high or low you are in all of those 5 factors to discuss who you really are. So speaking of who you really are, we have to discuss how do they test personality. So obviously you guys have taken personality tests on the internet, and it's not that they're so off on personality assessments. They're just not based in science. These are based in science. So behaviorists use different tests than trait theorists, than humanistics. They all use different types of tests. So we're going to talk about the most common tests. So when we talk about tests, personality tests, we use the term personality inventory. That's what it's called. So the first most common test is called the MMPI. The MMPI is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And if you go to Target to apply for a job, you actually take a personality test. You take an MMPI, believe it or not. That's the test you get when you apply at Target. Now, it was the MMPI 1, now it's the MMPI 2, but that is a most widely used personality test. And it's also used to screen for psychological disorders. You can actually find psychological disorders with certain questions of this test. The next one uses the 5-factor personality, and that one's called the MBTI. The MBTI is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and that actually does things on the 5-factor theory of personality. Then there are things called projective tests, and projective tests are personality tests that you guys have heard about, the Rorschach ink blot test. It's just an ink blot and you say what it looks like to you. And that's supposed to be like a window to your personality. You guys used to take tests in school that used to have a picture and you'd have to do a writing test on that. Now that actually is a personality test. That's called the thematic apperception test, the TAT. And that was, there would be an ambiguous human situation and you would describe what was going on. And based on what you described was a window to reveal your inner feelings, your conflicts, your motives. Okay, so you took those tests in school mostly for writing prompts, but they are psychological tests. There is one called the Rotter Incomplete Sentence Blank, which has just incomplete sentences, and you have to answer really quickly. I feel this. I hate this. I love this. And you fill in these 40 questions really quickly, and that reveals your personality. It reveals your desires and your struggles and your fears. So the last part of your chapter talks about some of the tests that were adapted because they weren't culturally competent. So they updated the TAT in a test called the CTCB, which was the Contemporized Theme Concerning Black test. So it was an updated test for African Americans. Then they changed the TAT, the thematic apperception test, to CTCB, which was called, to TEAMS, which was Tell Me a Story, and that was for Latinos. And then they also did what's known as a TIPI, which is a 10-item personality inventory, which had to do the big 5. So there's 4 things to know about these tests, and that is that all tests must have validity. Validity is when you measure what you're supposed to measure, and reliability. They have to be consistent. So what's a way you could do test reliability? How could you test reliability on a test? If I gave you a test on this chapter, how could I prove reliability? Nobody? I could give it to you again and again and again. That way you guys would have consistent answers. That's how I could prove reliability. So we need to have validity and reliability. There's 2 parts of personality tests. that you have to take into account. That first one was blurting. Your question 1 on the exam was blurting. I mean, on the Kahoot. Blurting and brooding. Blurting and brooding. So somebody who employs blurting is an enthusiastic self-disclosure, and somebody who is brooding is reluctant to disclose. So these play a role in personality tests, because there are people that are either going to disclose and the personality test will be accurate, and there are people that will brood who will not be accurate on personality tests. All right. I wanted to play Kahoot again, but we don't have time. It's the end of the class. So, does anybody have any questions? Because we're basically done. This was a long class.
Can please, Professor, can you repeat about, it was the first thing that you showed, the iceberg, please?
Oh, it's in your chapter. That same picture is in your chapter.
Oh, okay.
I took it from your chapter just so you would have the same exact picture.
And explain the same way, like.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything that I taught you is straight out of your chapter. I just was putting a spin on it so you would understand it by the time you read it.
Okay.
Everything's in your chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, everybody have an awesome Thanksgiving.
You too.
You too.
You too. Happy
You
Thanksgiving.
too. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
In the discussion,
Say again?
I didn't see like my grade. The last assignment, discussion.
I tried to open your papers and I had to ask for permission, so I couldn't read them.
Permission for what?
You did it in a Google Doc that I had to ask permission to view. So it supposedly sent you permissions because I can't open them.
And how I do that? Like I have to open Google Doc again? Is that?
I don't know. I can't, it says that I don't have permissions to read it.
Oh,
So I sent you the ask for permissions.
like, okay. And then about the discussion, from last week.
Yeah, I didn't get to finish grading because there was so
Oh,
much this
okay.
week, but I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
finish it this week.
Okay. I was
Okay.
like, okay, I'm gonna
But
so
get
I'm gonna
me the
check now.
permissions. Get me
Okay,
permission.
I'm gonna go for my emails now. So
Yeah, check it because I can't grade you unless I can read it.
but I didn't see that you sent me a request.
Yesterday afternoon. I
Oh,
think it
okay.
was yesterday afternoon. I tried to read it and I couldn't.
OMG. Because I remember yesterday when I was with my tutor, I told him I want his check, also my paper, that I completed, but he told me that. But I thought that you should see it because it was straight for you, like this.
Nope, I didn't get it.
Oh, so I have to like a paste, like I don't know how about it. And send it
won't let me
again.
see it. It does. I don't have permission to see it.
Okay, I'm gonna check that. And I have tutor like at 11, so I'm gonna ask him to help me to send it to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
That sounds good.
I'm slow with visual things, like.
No, you're doing great. You know the answers. You answer the questions, so I know you know the stuff.
You know that this is I'm taking this for my master.
Oh.
Because I am occupational therapist. but then I have to go for a master.
That, yes, you do. And you'll actually be a doctor. Actually, I think occupational therapists go on for doctorates.
No, yeah, no, but I'm not going that far. No.
I'll call you Dr. Evelyn.
No, it's okay. I feel like a doctor already. I know a lot with my condition. Forget it. You learn. You have to learn. But no, it's okay. Thank you. God bless you. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
You
Okay.
too.
I'm gonna work on that. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you.